Beautiful day. I am the Oracle Empress, and it is presently Wednesday, March 25th, 2026. We are broadcasting live from the Empress Network at empressblack.com. And according to our astroscope today, our moon phase is waxing crescent. It's 28% illuminated and in the sign of Taurus. In regards to this current phase's emotional influences, you might feel a mix of calm and restlessness as the moon encourages you to look inward and let go of what no longer serves you. Support your manifestations by taking a quiet walk, journal, whatever you need to release and write down a single intention to carry forward. This energy is best for releasing old patterns and habits, starting a new project after clearing, and reflecting on progress and setting realistic goals. Phenomenal morning, beautiful day. Hey, hey. Hey. All right, so the girl got a healthy, hefty to-do list today, including a couple of clients. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get this reading started because I want to make sure that I get me, some good breakfast in before, I head into work. So I've been doing pretty good, with getting a breakfast in the morning, even if it's, a late breakfast, close to noon. I've been liking the fact of getting back on track with eating breakfast. I notice it does make a difference in my energy naturally and all that good stuff. So yes, I trust, hope, and pray that all is well wherever you are in the world, okay? That is so important for all of us. Yes, indeed. Now we're going to start out with our chakra alignment message. Let's get some chakra alignment messages for this beautiful Work It Out Wednesday, okay? I got my I Am Aligned yoga mat in the trunk. So hopefully I can get some time in at some point today to roll that thing on out and stretch, release some tension. I've been doing a lot of sitting in the last few days, in Zoom meetings and trainings and creating content and editing, So to balance it all out, I need to get a good stretch and yoga, some alignment, all that. Of course, if you're interested in getting your I Am Aligned yoga mat designed by moi, you can shop Black. That's beautiful looks always created kindly in the Empress Beauty Boutique at marissablack.com, the sister site built into the Empress Network at empressblack.com. I'm presently offering a consultation where you're able to bundle. Look at that. Flexibility flipped over, where you're able to bundle some of the products that we have and find out what savings, I'll be able to offer you for bundling products, So if you're interested in that, you can find that service at empressblack.com. within our services as when you click book and shop. And we also have it right now highlighted on the home page. Okay. So we have number 9 here, flexibility. Does this not go with what we just started talking about? Okay. That beautiful sacral chakra energy. We want to get, balanced and grounded and, you know, raise our vibration, align with the light, you know. I don't know about you all, but I know I most definitely came out of like a hibernation type of energy, retreating my hermit mode from the winter time. And, I instantly, the spring, I'll say a week or two, I kept saying it was spring and it wasn't even spring yet, technically, according to the calendar. But I was feeling like it was spring because I was like coming out of hibernation. So, yeah, with that being said, that's that energy right here. We have number 16, determination. Look at all that fish, okay? All that fish with our solar plexus chakra. That is abundance. That's beautiful because I most definitely listened to Black Witch Yaya. That you can find this video presently within like the top 10 videos, depending on when you see this. But she made a video yesterday on Mami Wata, okay? And, all the different names that she's recognized by, in different cultures, African and Caribbean cultures, and highlighting some of her gifts and strengths and talents and what she's known for. And I thought that was so amazing because, of course, I'm a water sign and I resonate heavily with that energy. But even more so, I thought it was interesting because yesterday I literally had a thought come to mind where I said to myself that, my final wishes, when it's that time, I'm not rushing it, of course. I love life. Even when it's stressful, crazy, and challenging, I still love it. But when it is that time, that I want it to be cremated first and then have my remains spread across, the ocean near the motherland, And that I think we had a truth came out yesterday. The first card with the balance scales. Let's see. Look at that. It's right here. This card came out. It was the first one yesterday. So the fire and the water. And I guess that's what triggered me to think about that. But yeah, for whatever reason that came to mind. And when she made that video and I caught it like within the first hour of her, releasing it, or it showed up on YouTube, I said, this is so cray. All right, so we have number 2, rebirth. And that black is like our earth star chakra. Okay, with the butterflies there. So we got fish here, representing abundance, prosperity. In this instance, determination, with the butterflies, with transformation and rebirth. Okay. So as we get aligned and centered and grounded within our being, okay, when we are able to recognize and appreciate both the light and the dark within us and learn how to manage them both, because it's real. We're not all love and light all the time. There is, darkness within all of us. And it doesn't necessarily mean like you're evil or, you're karmic, or it doesn't automatically equate to that. If you choose to embody and resonate with that energy, that dark energy, then of course that's your choice or your decision. We don't recommend it, but then that would be a different story. But that energy is within us for a reason, you know. Um, so yeah, with that being said, I mentioned Outwitting the Devil yesterday. It's a book by Napoleon Hill. We have the audio book. Um, we shared it within our book club, audio book club collection within our Empress tools at the Empress Network at empressblack.com. You can check that out there. Of course, you can always buy it from Amazon or your favorite bookstore, stuff like that. But, you know, we love audiobooks around here. Okay? Because we can listen while we, you know, are being productive doing other things for sure. But either way, that book, that the thing that I love about it, because I've listened to it, I don't know how many times by now. Um, it shows us that the dark, the devil, the adversary, you know, the evil or whatever, because we know if we take the D off of devil, that's evil. If we take the O out of good, that's God, okay, to simplify it. But we know that we have both energies that reside within us, like positive and negative energy. And when we choose to, you know, be more positive and high vibrational and connect with our higher self, you know, we attract, and the results that we obtain in our life are in alignment with that. When we do the opposite, when we choose to be negative, when we choose to you know, participate in toxic, you know, habits and behaviors, and be low vibrational, then that is what we attract as well. So what I'm getting with this energy is most definitely, you know, taking the time to pause, reflect, and be present in your body. You know, you can meditate in motion. That's one of my themes that I had taken place a few years ago when I was sharing my yoga journey, my yoga and meditation combined, where, you know, to me, you know, they just made sense to do it together at the same time versus just sitting still in an Indian style, like meditating. I could do that while I'm stretching and, you know, being present in my body and, you know, monitoring and observing, I'll say observing myself as I transition to different poses and how I'm feeling and all that type of stuff. I think like the meditation part is the processing and being present, totally present, while moving and stretching, you know, that's a very healing act. And as we stated in our astroscope, you know, for the last few days, you know, that's what's been recommended along with, you know, journaling, so that we're able to track, you know, our progress and what we're seeing, feeling, and experiencing. All right, with determination here, again, our solar plexus chakra, that is our gut, our core, you know, our center. That is the sun, the light within us where it is housed. And when you feel heavy and, you know, there's like a dense energy there, when your gut is out of alignment, that kind of slows you down. You don't have the motivation, you know, to do what it is that you have a desire to do, you know, for yourself, within life, and so forth. So being familiar with, you know, anatomy, even if it's on a basic level, I ain't saying go ahead and get a doctorate or nursing degree or whatever, unless that's what you went to and you want to do that. But if you have a body and you know, have to exist in it, it just makes sense to me to just know at least the basics, okay? So studying and becoming familiar with the organs and so forth that are housed in this region, you know, how they work and what they need as far as nourishment and nutrients and detoxing and, you know, cleansing, you know, purification through fasting and things of the sort. being more mindful and conscious of what we're consuming, um, how what we consume, you know, how long it takes for us to digest it, what supports the digestion process, all those types of things are important. The fish makes me think of like a pescatarian, more Mediterranean diet and lifestyle. You know, um, I don't really, classify or categorize myself in any of those groups. However, you know, I do lean more towards that type of diet and lifestyle, you know, um, because of our value digestion and feeling good. And I recognize that when my intestines, my colon, aren't operating optimally, how that impacts the other organs that are in that region, and how that impacts how I feel overall. So fasting and detoxing, is also important to me, for those reasons. And I highly recommend them along with, you know, the physical movement and being present in your body. Because a lot of times we run to like medical professionals, doctors, and so forth, that in too many cases are going to try to instantly recommend you to, you know, a specialist, a surgeon, they're in bed with, to go ahead and cut you open, or, remove certain things. Like that's what they get paid for. That's how they make their money. That's how they put their kids through college and, you know, contribute to their 401ks, and, live in nice zip codes and drive nice cars and stuff. So they're not going to recommend simple acts like drinking some lemon chai water or some apple cider vinegar water or some herbal tea blends, or, very simple, affordable things that with doing it on a regular basis can help you to feel better, on a daily basis type of stuff. So with that being said, um, we know around here, if you look good, you feel good. But even more than that, when you know better, hopefully you're going to do better, be better, have better, and experience better. It all goes together, okay? So with this rebirth energy here, number 2, this is us transforming our mindset, you know, um, taking time to gain the information and the wisdom from the right sources, to support us in evolving and growing. And if you have a desire to expand, in whatever areas of your life that you have a desire to do that, here recently with our Am I Living to Die or Dying to Live series, 10-part series that we did for the last couple weeks, that ended on Eid Mubarak last Friday. I went in on that one. We got to the bottom of a lot of things, from the mind, mentally, emotionally, in the heart space, how we feel, spiritually, that the soul within us, and our connection to the divine and the divinity in everyone that we're connected to. Okay. Um, we also looked at like relationships on a relational level, how we relate to one another. And it starts with, self-love, how we see and, treat and honor and respect ourselves with the self-confidence and the self-esteem, you know, that's going to subsequently impact, how we relate and are in relationship with our peers and our family, our friends, colleagues, and so forth. Okay. So, and finances, when we grown people, adults, which is who I know I cater to, even though some kids might be like me, how I was as a child, a little bit more advanced, curious and nosy and grown people business, when it comes to things like money and finances, financial literacy, I'm here for all of that. You want to tap in and I'd rather you be looking at this than some nonsense, something that is promoting, sexuality and, just like borderline pornography type of, stuff that they have out there in abundance for you to, be distracted and consumed by, even children, okay, that aren't watched and protected in that regard. I'd rather them be paying attention to this, okay? But, primarily I'm focused on adults, that are hopefully teaching their children better, okay? So they're learning better so that they can, do their job respectfully and responsibly. All right. All right. So on the bottom of the deck, we have number 27, psychic development. This is that season for sure. What sign are we in now? Is it still Aries? I forgot. Or is it Gemini? But either way, we're in Aries season. We just wrapped up Pisces season last week. And this was our theme, real heavy. That's what a lot of this is about. A part of psychic development, I feel like, it's a combination of mental and spiritual well-being, and awareness of self and the world that we live in. Also, a little bit of emotional intelligence needs to be tied into that because, being able to recognize the difference between something as simple as anxiety and, like a signal or a sign, from the universe within your body telling you, your intuition telling you that something's not right. That's important to be able to recognize the differences. It can save us a lot of heartache, stress, drama, and, just problems, challenges, and adversities, when we know better. So the greater connection that we have, mind, body, and spirit, mind, body, soul, as I say, whatever resonates best with you, the better that connection is. And that's what yoga is. A lot of people don't know that yoga is literally union of the mind, body, and soul. So, when you have that connection with the divine, the spirit, the Holy Spirit within you, you're able to recognize things better, faster, and, make decisions and maneuver accordingly. Okay. So you can't sleep on, psychic development and what it offers when we do that type of work. A lot of what I shared within our audiobook collection are different books, tools. To me, books are tools, that can teach us, different systems, whether they be like religious systems, with the holy books and so forth, different concepts and everything. When we know not only how we were taught to believe and, operate and, things we were taught to practice in life, that's not the case for everybody everywhere on this beautiful globe, in this beautiful world. Okay. So it's important for us to explore sometimes, to be just aware of the different belief systems and practices, ideals, and so forth that exist. For me doing that, it has really supported me in having a more expanded perspective, and helped me to understand and relate more to more people. I don't necessarily have to agree with and accept everything, but just to have this simple awarenesses, you will have a better way of going about interacting and dealing with people, because you know that everybody doesn't think like you. Everybody doesn't think like you, and it's okay, but it helps you to respect, you know, respect the people better. Having that respect can also eliminate a lot of confusion and trauma. But we have that for ourselves and others. All right, we have service here. And our first affirmation is I feel good when I can help others. Okay. So with this being with flexibility, coming out with flexibility, this could be people who teach things like meditation and yoga, alignment, whether they do it for free. There's different programs and people that have different programs and so forth, like on YouTube and online, and they promote it. They teach these different things, complimentary to people, because they recognize the benefits of doing these practices and doing these things, and they want to see others, be great and blossom and benefit, from doing that type of work, on and within themselves. I keep an eye on the time because I've been, the beginning of the week sometimes is a little bit slower, not necessarily like slow, like I don't have nothing to do, but it's a little bit more flexible time-wise, and I can't sit here for no 2 hours today like I've been doing. All right, we have doubt, okay, as our second soul lesson. I release the need to know all the answers, okay? So with this being between flexibility and determination, I'm getting that sometimes not fully understanding something can keep and hold people back from, trying something new. I remember back when I first started becoming interested in yoga and meditation, because I was actually, it was recommended to me by an ex like 20 years ago. And, I started doing my own research and purchased some DVDs and, started, practicing at home, and eventually started to share a little bit with like family and friends. And I would have people that would provide their opinions, saying that, people that I knew that came from like a religious background, like I did, that said that was devil, like it was evil worshiping and stuff like that. And I was just like how? Like I didn't understand that. So it challenged me to do my own research and get a greater understanding of these practices, and deciding to keep it more personal and private and sacred, in my continued practicing and studying, because I didn't want that doubt. It did slow me down and make me disconnect for a short period of time. But as you find out and learn, more information for yourself about certain things, you'll see why, we were convinced or led to believe things that are actually good for us and beneficial to our overall health and well-being. We're being told that it's harmful. It's not for us. It's dangerous. It's, the devil, that type of stuff, evil. Like money can be the devil and evil, but people still go to work every day and slave for it. We have failure here. I understand that a mistake is only an opportunity to learn. Okay. So with determination and rebirth, that's just letting us know that, never give up on yourself, on, your goals, your dreams, the desires that God put within you. It's there for a reason, it's there for a reason. Okay. We got self-esteem here, some more yellow. I possess gifts of the soul that benefit me and others. Okay. And on the bottom of the deck, we have balance. We love this. Okay. I bring a state of perfect harmony into my world, and I do so without judgment. So, overall, what I'm getting with this energy is um, by us, taking small steps to, do our research and go within, and connect with the right people who are more informed about certain things than we are, to get greater wisdom and understanding. By us doing, these simple tasks, we are becoming more confident in what is out there for us, and how to benefit from these practices, these this knowledge and awareness, these tools. We're learning how to use them for our benefit, and promote them, you know, responsibly to others who can also benefit from them. Because what I've learned is, from experience, early on, of deciding with my spiritual journey, that that I was more spiritual than I was, religious, and wanting to study and become familiar with different, belief systems and practices, because I was looking to grow and evolve and just be an all around better person. And what I found was things that my religion that I was born into, my family and so forth, Baptist, Christian, going to church type of stuff, didn't necessarily teach, the practices and the ideals that I grew to value, you know, from studying other religions over time as an adult. Okay. Um, so I feel like even to this day, if I just continue going to church and following, the Christian belief system, I wouldn't have the level of, confidence and self-discipline, determination, um, accountability, that type of stuff, to the level and degree that I do. Not to say that Christians don't, but from the teachings that I had already gotten, and that I've, received over the years, like I still will go to church, and I still look at, online church services on Sundays or Mondays whenever I have the time to watch the replay type of thing, from, you know, more mentally and spiritually evolved, pastors and teachers and so forth. But I also listen to, Islamic, teachings and so forth. And what would Sadhguru be considered? Is that Buddhism? Like, I listen to different, religious and spiritual teachers and gurus from different, walks of life, different religious backgrounds. And I learned something from all of them. A lot of the things that they teach, are similar, or they connect in some way or another, or give a different side or perspective of, just basic principles that we should live by. But I appreciate, not being in a box, when it comes to my personal growth and development, my evolution. And with service, self-esteem, and self-determination being the yellow that is highlighted here, to me, that is all about the self-confidence, the willpower, that is needed to be able to overcome, the different doubts and, people projecting their failures, and stuff like that. Okay. We have the Fool here, and that's 0. For this to come out, this is just saying that we are allowing ourselves to operate from a clean slate with the rebirth. Okay. And recognizing that every day that we're offered a new day, we're offered a new opportunity to begin again, for us to take the things that we have learned thus far, in this present lifetime. And if you've gotten some type of, past life regressions and stuff like that, that deep spiritual work, and gotten those types of self-awarenesses, you can take all those things with you, and make sense of it, apply it to, your life as you move forward, so that you're able to, have a more productive, prosperous, life, doing great things for yourself and the people that are on your path for you to collaborate and work with, with the 3 of Pentacles here, with service. This is letting us know that we may be questioning some of our connections, our relationships, and whether or not, we've outgrown situations, relationships, and so forth. And we know best, what works for us and what doesn't. So taking the time to go within, to analyze and reflect on where you are presently in your life, in your journey, what you have a desire to do and achieve, becoming clear on what your purpose, your mission in this lifetime is and it's all about, and decide from there. Sometimes we have to end agreements, contracts, relationships and connections and so forth, because they no longer serve our highest and greatest good. And that's okay, because they may have served their purpose for the time, in which, it was supposed to. And when it's time to move on and move forward, do that. If there's healing work that needs to be done, as a byproduct, whether that healing be mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, financially, do that. That's very important in making sure that, we move forward like light as the Fool's energy, and we're not, angry, upset, bitter, resentful, or anything of the sort. We're able to start over with the Fool energy at 0, and build new connection, new relationships. Relationship building is very important, making sure that you know yourself first, to be able to recognize yourself in the ones that you're here to do good with, to be of service with. Okay. All right, we have 4 cards that came out here. We have the 8 of Swords here. Okay. And this is with doubt. This is connected to the doubt and the failure. We have the Strength card. We have the 4 of Swords, and we have the Knight of Swords. Okay. So the message that I'm getting here with this 8 of Swords, first of all, this is 2 8s, so that's 88. Okay. It takes, willpower, strength. I'm going to keep using these words because it's here, confidence to be able to break free from the illusions that, the world that we live in, those that so-called run the world, rule the world, whatever, the powers that be type of stuff, um, the things that they have put in place to keep us suppressed, depressed, um, limited, blocked, distracted, consumed, stressed, dependent, trapped in a matrix and illusion. This what this Eight of Swords here is looking like. Disconnected from our inner knowing, our higher knowing, our intuition, lacking self-belief and all that type of stuff. When we start to free ourselves from the entrapment of certain religions and belief systems that support us being disconnected from the divine, from God, from our angels, and ancestors, if you bought that life and you believe in them, higher spiritual beings that are there to support us and, guide us and protect us, along with the Most High God type of stuff. When we are disconnected from that, our lives are usually a reflection of that. But when we decide to learn better, become more aware, we recognize that we are protected, that we are strong, that we are powerful, that we are capable of greatness, being it, embodying it, sharing it, teaching it, that type of stuff. So with that, we have the Four of Swords with the Knight of Swords. This is mental energy, mind energy. So with part of taking back your power and, standing in your power, believing in yourself, you're able to recognize when it's time to rest, recover your energy, recuperate your energy via practices like meditation and just getting good quality rest. We sleep on and don't necessarily, appreciate and equate how valuable, quality rest is. The older I've gotten and value things like good physical health, good mental health, emotional health, just being able to be present in my body and have my body feel good without, substances and medication and things that, suppress pain, but doesn't resolve the issues. If anything, they probably, cause more issues by, helping you to get temporary relief, but it doesn't get to the root cause of why you're not feeling your best, type of stuff. So for me, yoga and meditation has supported me and I feel a pain there. Where does that come from? And getting to the root, the bottom of it and correcting it instead of, just popping a pain pill and acting like, it's not there when it is, and it needs to be addressed, type of stuff. So, recovering, resting, because the body naturally heals itself if you're able to get out the way and allow it to do so. Okay. But when we are attached to mentally, the limiting beliefs and ideas of, what we're capable of, and we're reliant on outside sources and influences to fix us, then, we lack, we are disconnected from our true options, our real options and possibilities, if that makes sense. So with this Knight of Swords energy is recognizing, you know, when it's time to rest, when it's time to retreat, and when it's time to take action. And, the Knight of Swords in this picture is showing me actions that are, you know, responsible. They have been considered. You've taken the time to, analyze and reflect and, gain the understanding, the insight, the wisdom that you need. And you've gotten the instruction and guidance from, your higher source here, or a trusted source, and whatever action you're making it with confidence, with the self-esteem and the rebirth. You're able to move forward and do what you need to do from a place of strength. You're not struggling mentally and spiritually. Okay. You're not doubting yourself. You're not afraid of failing type of stuff. You recognize that, okay, failure is an option, but so is success, So which one am I going to choose to align with is the question. So really doubt and, failure is all mindset related, and our ability to be active, to move in our purpose, to operate in our purpose, and do so with confidence. It starts with our mental development, our ability to critical think and find solutions in, any situation. Okay. Whether the solution comes from within us, from our higher knowing and the connection we have with that, or from someone who is respected, qualified, and, has our best interests at heart to help us to get to the bottom of something and, get the clarity that we need to make the right decisions. Okay. The best decision. All right. So we have the Knight of Cups here. So with the Knight of Cups and Knight of Swords, this is having, stable mental health. The swords is the mind, and the cups are our emotions, our heart, having a healthy heart. So the knights, are above the pages, they're a little bit more mature, a little bit more experienced, a little bit more aware. But they're not quite kings yet. Okay. So kings or queens. So with this is just telling us that, we are maturing and, recognizing the importance of balancing our mind and our heart, being, empathetic, practicing empathy, but not being like self-sacrificial, making sure that we're able to make mindful and conscious decisions to protect ourselves, protect our overall being, our mind and our heart. Because the thing is, when we care, a lot of times everyone isn't as caring as we are, as empathetic as we are, as mindful as we are, and they can try to take advantage of that. So being able to, process your thoughts and your emotions, respectfully and responsibly. It's a practice, getting used to it, getting comfortable with doing it. It helps us to, just be a better service to ourselves and others. Okay. All right, we have the Star here. So what I'm getting here with the Three of Pentacles and the Eight of Swords, This star energy is letting us know that we are divinely connected to the all, and there is no lack. You know, um, we are healers with the ability to heal ourselves when we choose to align with and embody, you know, that healing light energy, you know, that universal health care that is available to us. Okay. We got the Knight of Cups moving towards this star energy here. So this could be your energy where you are moving towards divinity, divine energy. You know, you have a desire to practice sovereignty or become more aware and gain a greater understanding of what that is and what it's about. I'm getting a real sacred energy here. You're interested in sacred wisdom, okay? Things that aren't necessarily known by everyone. Like you have to go and do some deep diving and researching to find out and learn more about certain things, you know, certain ways of living, to be able to receive those benefits, you know, in your life. So with the Knight of Cups and the Star, this is also allowing the divine, trusting in the divine to keep your light shining bright, you know, to change your inner light bulb when it needs to be changed with the rebirth energy, okay? To fill your cup, okay? Not looking at the your cup as being half empty. You know, you're seeing it always as half full when it's not completely full. And, you know, having the confidence in the Most High to be the source of the love that's needed to keep your cup full, so that you're able to take care of yourself, but also be of service. You know, it's nothing like doing and being of service for everyone, and it's not benefiting you, where you're doubting, you know, yourself, you're doubting, you know, your purpose. You don't feel, you know, like you're not doing what you're doing from a place of true, genuine care. You know, you could be in, for instances, like where people, an example is when you have people that work in fields like that require like good bedside manner, like medical professionals, nurses and doctors and so forth, you know, where they're in position and they're expected to heal people, to help people, but, you know, they're so scorned or, you know, not in alignment with the divine like they should be or could be. And they're doing it for the money, or they're doing it for, you know, selfish means and so forth. So you can't expect them to really care about you healing, okay? You being better, you feeling better, you being your best self, your best, strong, you know, healed self. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up because look at that. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. Because we got to get ready to go. All right, we have the sun on the bottom of the deck. Is that not the healing energy that we was talking about just now? But we also have the Nine of Pentacles and the Nine of Cups. You can't ask for nothing better than this energy right here with the Eight of Wands, okay? So let's start here with the Nine of Pentacles and the Nine of Cups. The Nine of Cups is an energy of someone who most definitely recognizes that, God, their angels, are the reason why they are as strong as they are. They give thanks, they're full of gratitude. They don't take full credit, even though this yellow represents, willpower, self-confidence, high self-esteem, all this yellow, that's what that's representing. Even though that's there and it's evident, they don't take responsibility, or they don't take claim that they're fully in control or responsible for their stability, their security, their abundance, their fruitfulness, their relationships that are of high value, the resources that they look at everything as blessings. They feel like the divine God, loves them, showers them in blessings, protects them, guides them, heals them, fills their cup, that's this energy here, okay? So this could be you as an individual, or this could be, two different people who embody this energy, and they work well together, because where one is strong, the other may be weak, but because they work together, their strengths and weaknesses balance, provide them the balance that they need, okay? Yes, the Nine of Pentacles, someone who's a great manifester, very resourceful, very abundant, they know how to acquire, tangible things and resources, create things, and they're responsible with, they're a good steward of what they have, okay? They value themselves, they value God, they value nature, and, they're very grateful. Both of these energies, and with this being with strength here, okay, and failure with self-determination, these are people who have experienced some form of loss. They know what it feels like to fail, but they also know what it means and feels like to pick up the pieces and, keep moving forward, to keep going. With this Eight of Wands here, this is communication, okay? We are in the post-shadow phase of Mercury gone direct, and this is forward movement, progression. This is some fiery, passionate, creative, communicative, productive energy, okay? So this could be someone independently, individually embodying this energy, and, they've done the work, they've been doing the work, and they are creating and they're manifesting, and they're, living their best life, or will be living their best life, okay? You got the Sun here. This Queen of Cups, listen, this is so crazy how when I say we done and I go to look at the bottom of the deck, 2 days in a row, the Queen of Cups was the second card. And that's mommy water energy, okay? The Queen of Cups, Queen of emotions, totally connected to the divine. This could be someone who is with child, or preparing to be with child or give birth, whether it be to idea, to, wow, that was deep. I don't think the camera's ready for that one, so I'm gonna hold back on that one. But give birth to something phenomenal, something great, something beautiful, something prosperous, something healing, something, highly impactful. Okay. Um, you got the sun, all this yellow here is definitely giving us a healing, nurturing, confident, stable, secure, emotionally intelligent, mentally evolved and developed, physically healthy and grounded, practical. Did I say resourceful, analytical? Like, this is a real powerful energy here that we are dealing with, and we should not take that lightly. So whether that's you, it's important for you to make sure that you are maintaining the practices that support you and maintaining that energy. And if you know someone that embodies that energy, make sure that you don't take them for granted, and you give them the respect and honor, and whatever it is that God tells you to do, how to do it, whatever with that relationship, make sure you do that respectfully and responsibly. All right. So if you found any value, from this message here today, make sure you like, share, subscribe. Join us on the Empress Network. Tell a friend to tell a friend. And you are appreciated. You are valued. We want to see you be great, do great, have greatness, and recognize, all the blessings that the divine has for you. Don't run from it by running from your purpose. Live in your truth, and everything gonna be all right. All right. Thank you. Until next time, peace and love.